Right now, something is being prepared in Jerusalem, and if it's completed, everything changes. Not in theory, not someday. In your lifetime, a temple, not a church, not a synagogue. A temple, built according to the exact specifications given in the Hebrew Bible, with priests already trained for service, sacred instruments already crafted, and garments sewn thread by thread according to ancient law. Most people have no idea this is happening, and that should disturb you. But here's what almost nobody is asking. Why now? Why, after nearly 2,000 years, is everything suddenly ready? Because if you understand Bible prophecy, this is not just another religious development. This is the moment everything begins. Because the third temple is not just a building, it is the trigger. The starting point for a chain of events that both Daniel and Jesus described in terrifying detail. And what comes after it is something the world is not ready for. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly where we are on the prophetic timeline and why time is running out faster than anyone expected. To understand why the third temple matters, you need to understand what happened to the first two. The first temple was built by King Solomon around 960 years before Christ. It was the dwelling place of God's presence on earth. The Ark of the Covenant rested inside it. The glory of God filled it so powerfully that the priests could not even stand. For nearly 400 years, that temple stood as the center of Israel's worship. Then, Babylon came. In 586 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar destroyed it completely. The walls were torn down, the gold was stripped, the people were taken into exile, and the Ark of the Covenant vanished. No one knows where it went. But God made a promise through the prophet Jeremiah. 70 years. That was how long the exile would last. And 70 years later, exactly as promised, the Jews returned. They built the second temple. It was smaller, less glorious. The ark was gone, but the sacrifices resumed. The priesthood was restored, and for over 500 years that temple stood. Then came Jesus. He walked through its courts. He taught in its chambers. He wept over it, and he made a prophecy that no one wanted to believe. Matthew 24, verse 2. Jesus looked at the temple and said, "Not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down." His disciples were stunned. This was the most magnificent structure in the ancient world. Herod had spent decades expanding it. The stones were massive, some weighing over 500 tons. And yet, in 70 AD, the Roman army under Titus did exactly what Jesus predicted. They burned the temple. They dismantled it stone by stone. And for nearly 2,000 years, there has been no temple in Jerusalem. Until now. Here's what is happening right now, and almost no one in the mainstream media is covering it. The Temple Institute in Jerusalem has spent over 40 years preparing for the construction of the third temple. This is not a fringe group. This is an established organization with rabbinical backing, international funding, and a very specific mission. They have completed the architectural blueprints based on the descriptions in the books of Ezekiel and Exodus. They have crafted over 70 sacred vessels, including the golden menorah, the altar of incense, the showbread table, and the priestly crown. These are not replicas for a museum. They are functional instruments, built to exact biblical specifications, ready for use. They have sewn the priestly garments, the blue, purple and scarlet robes described in Exodus chapter 28, recreated thread by thread. They have identified and trained Levitical priests, men from the priestly lineage who have been educated in the rituals, the sacrifices, and the ceremonies of the ancient temple service, and they have rehearsed the sacrificial offerings publicly, on camera, in Jerusalem. Everything is ready, everything except one thing. Numbers chapter 19 describes a purification ritual that is absolutely required before any temple service can begin. A red heifer, without blemish, without defect, completely red from head to tail, without a single hair of any other color, must be sacrificed and burned. Its ashes are mixed with water to create the purification mixture that cleanses the priests and the temple site itself. Without this ritual, the temple cannot function, the priests cannot serve, the sacrifices cannot begin. This animal had not appeared in Israel for nearly 2,000 years. Let that sink in. For 2 millennia, everything else could be prepared. The blueprints, the vessels, the garments, the priests. But without the red heifer, it was all waiting, frozen in time. And then, in September 2022, 5 red heifers were flown from a ranch in Texas to Israel. 5. All meeting the biblical requirements, all inspected by rabbinical authorities, all deemed potentially eligible for the ceremony. The missing piece had arrived. As of today, these heifers are being kept under close supervision in Israel. Religious authorities are monitoring them constantly for any disqualifying blemish. A single white or black hair would invalidate them. The window for the ceremony is narrow. The heifers must be between 2 and 5 years old. That window closes soon. And the Temple Institute has publicly stated that once the red heifer ceremony is performed, construction of the third temple can begin. Now here is where this goes from remarkable to terrifying. The prophet Daniel wrote about the third temple over 2,500 years ago. In Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, he describes a future ruler who will make a covenant with many for 1 week. And in the middle of that week, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. Sacrifice and offering. That requires a functioning temple. Jesus himself quoted Daniel directly. In Matthew 24, verse 15, he said, "When you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." The holy place, that is the inner sanctuary of the temple. Paul, writing to the Thessalonians, describes the same event. He says a man of lawlessness will seat himself in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. 3 different biblical writers, 3 different centuries, all describing the same thing. A temple in Jerusalem in the last days that becomes the stage for the most catastrophic spiritual deception in human history. And for the first time in 2,000 years, every single condition for that temple to exist is falling into place, not in theory, not in some distant theological future. Right now, in our generation. But there is one massive obstacle that everyone knows about, and few understand the prophetic significance of. The Temple Mount, the exact spot where Solomon's temple stood and where the second temple stood after it, is currently occupied by the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, 2 of the most sacred sites in Islam. For decades, the conventional wisdom has been that building a Jewish temple on that site would be impossible without triggering a global conflict. And yet, the situation is shifting. access to the Temple Mount for Jewish worshippers has been expanding quietly but consistently. The number of Jews ascending the Mount has increased dramatically in recent years. Prayers that were once forbidden are now being quietly tolerated. Some scholars believe the temple could be built adjacent to the current structures, not on top of them. Others believe a geopolitical event, a war, a treaty, or a dramatic shift in power, could change the equation entirely. Whatever the mechanism, the prophetic text is clear. There will be a temple, there will be sacrifices, and there will be an abomination that desolates it. The only question is how soon. So what does all of this mean for you? It means we are living in a generation that is watching prophecy unfold in real time, not metaphorically, not symbolically. Literally, the priests are trained, the vessels are made, the garments are sewn. The red heifers are in Israel. The blueprints are complete. The political landscape is shifting. Every single element that Daniel, Jesus, and Paul described is now present on the earth. Simultaneously, for the first time in 2,000 years. This is not a drill. This is not a theory. This is history converging with prophecy, and you are alive to witness it. The question is not whether the temple will be built. The prophetic text guarantees it. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Because when that temple stands, when the sacrifices begin, when the events described in Daniel and Revelation start unfolding one after another, the window for preparation closes. And the preparation God is asking for is not physical. It is not about storing food or building shelters. It is about your heart. Where does your trust rest? In systems that are already crumbling, in security that can be taken overnight, in a world that Scripture promises will be shaken to its foundations, or in the one who said, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away." That is the choice in front of you today, not tomorrow, not when the temple is built. Today, the God who predicted the destruction of the first 2 temples with perfect accuracy, the God who foretold the exile and the return, the God who described these very days thousands of years before they arrived. That God is speaking to you right now, through this video, through this moment. Do not ignore it. If this opened your eyes to what is happening in our world right now, subscribe to Sacred Flame and turn on the bell. Leave a comment with the word temple, so I know this message reached you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because the signs are not coming. They are here. And you did not find this video by accident.